Who is Junia, the woman called an apostle by Paul? Junia is a woman greeted by Paul in a single verse at the end of Romans. Everything we know for sure about Junia, we extract from what Paul says about her in this one verse. That may not sound like much to go on, but this one verse actually gives us a surprising amount of information. So here are 6 things Paul tells us about Junia. 1. She is a woman. Junia is a very common Latin women's name, written here in Greek as Union. You're not going to believe this, but Romans is generally accepted as a letter greeting the church in Rome. Shocking, I know. We have over 400 attestations of Junia as a woman's name in antiquity, over 200 of those in Rome alone. 2. She has a male partner in ministry named Andronicus. Andronicus and Junia are probably husband and wife, although they could also be father and daughter or brother and sister. But Andronicus has to be a close male relation of some sort, by law or by blood, because any other male-female combination would have been scandalous. 3. She is Jewish. Paul numbers Junia among his syngenes, a word that literally means relatives. But he seems to use this word to signify not necessarily a family relationship, but a fellow Jew. We know that Jews in antiquity liked to use Greco Roman names that sounded similar to Semitic or Hebrew names, and the Latin name Junia happens to be homophonic with a couple of Hebrew feminine names. So I will have more on that in a future video. 4. She has been in prison with Paul. Women weren't usually put in prison in the Roman Empire. If they were in legal trouble, then they were usually put under house arrest. So Junia seems to have been a bit of a troublemaker alongside Paul. This doesn't indicate that Junia was a man, though. We know that Christian women were persecuted in this way. The book of Acts records that Paul himself was locking Christian women up prior to his conversion. 5. She converted to Christianity before Paul. Jesus is believed to have died in AD 30 or 33, and Paul is believed to have converted to Christianity in AD 33 or 34. So Junia was among the earliest converts to Christianity, and possibly someone who walked with Jesus. Romans was written in AD 57 or 58. So at this point, Junia has been a Christian for at least a quarter of a century, and she probably holds a high degree of respect and gravitas in the incipient Christian community at Rome. 6. She was an outstanding apostolos. This adjectival construction that Paul uses here, episemos and plus dative, is not super common in Greek, but where we do see it, it usually means an outstanding, noteworthy, or notorious member of a group. And we have several good 1st and 2nd century comparative examples of that in the Hellenistic literature. Obviously, it's that last point, number 6, that has attracted the most attention. We tend to think of the apostles as consisting of only Paul and the 12, all men. So Paul calling a woman by the word that can mean apostle clashes with our expectations. But does it actually clash with what the texts of the New Testament and the early church tell us about apostolicity? In my view, that is the question we should all be asking. So that covers what Paul tells us about Junia. In my next video, I will cover some of the controversies about this passage.